Hello. This is going to be an open video response to the user April and Wayne show, and a video they made titled Exposing Metal Bands, Satanic Illuminati Part 1. Before we dive into some of the points raised in this video, let me give you some groundwork. I'm an atheist. I do not believe in Satan or God. I like heavy metal music as well as jazz, hip-hop and rock, and many other genres. I've never sacrificed a goat or considered worshipping Satan as a result of these music tastes. For those of you who have not seen the video in question, I will leave a link to it in the description below. But just to save time, here's a quick summary. The basic idea is that they are claiming metal music as a whole promotes Satanism, witchcraft, drug use, bisexuality, which is apparently a horrific thing by their standards, as well as encouraging violence, demonic possession and rage. Let's start on that last point first. Metal is a broad genre of music in itself. The only metal genre that based around the idea of anti-theism is black metal. We'll get to that later, but to address the idea that metal as a whole is anti-theistic or satanic, as a lot of the more dedicated Christians refuse to see a difference between the two, there are plenty of heavy metal bands and musicians whose music is inspired by their faith. There are plenty of musicians who play heavy metal, who are Christians and attend church, and still love playing this genre of music. But don't just take my word for it. Let me give you some examples. Christian metal bands, for example. Mortification, a Christian death metal band. As I Lay Dying, a Christian metalcore band. POD, a Christian rap metal group. And the list goes on. It's not hard to do the research into this and quickly confirm that Christian bands exist within the genre. But to give an example of a specific individual, the lead singer of Slayer is a Christian, and the band that songs often base their lyrics on the disdain for organised religion. Because like most metal bands that sing about theology or myth, they use it as a writing mechanism. They use it because it's an inspiration to them one way or another, not only because they believe, love or hate that branch of thought, but because it is a familiar staple of culture. Everyone knows about religion. Another point they raise is quotes about musicians, for lack of a better explanation, losing themselves during performances. They claim this is evidence of possession. So without digging into the entire topic of possession, I'll put it into much simpler terms. Anyone who has ever performed high-energy music like heavy metal live, or has even been to a heavy metal show, adrenaline, excitement and many other factors come into this feeling on stage or in the crowd. The idea of having thousands of fans there to see your music, shouting along and so on, provides a large rush to the musicians playing on stage. Next, we'll look at the points raised on promoting rage and the vocal techniques used. Some genres and bands sing about anger and rage, and they do this for the same reason anyone else sings about love, hate, politics, or whatever subject people of any genre of music choose, because it's emotional or important to them. Heavy metal is, as I said before, extremely high energy, and because of this, to tackle another point, there are things such as mosh pits and gigs. These, however, are not just violent outbursts. They are an expression of the energy, its crowd reaction to the music. But these are not simply brawling pits, as ignorant people assume. If you go down in a mosh pit, the usual reaction is for at least one person to try and pick you up. It's an unwritten code. You don't pull anyone in who doesn't want to mosh. You don't try and hurt people intentionally. And people in these pits, or people at metal gigs in general, from my experience, are some of the most passive and friendly people you'll like to meet. When it comes to the vocal techniques used, the video touched on claiming these are attempting to imitate demons. And in some cases, yes, the vocalist is attempting to sound evil, to suit their music. However, a lot of the time this is not the reason. Shouting, screaming, growling are all things people do when they're angry or in distress. It's a high-energy vocal technique. But to blanket all metal bands for using this is ignorant beyond belief. There are literally thousands of bands with clean singers who are some of the most talented individuals on the planet. People like Lane Staley of Alice in Chains, Phil Anselmo of Pantera, and James Maynard Keenan of Tool, and the list goes on and on. And even when it comes to growling vocals, let's use an example. Gojira are a French death metal band. They use growling and shouting for all of their songs. However, they use this vocal style and music genre in a way that the mainstream and right-wing media would refuse to acknowledge. They sing about the environment and humans' place in it. They have an entire album made about man-made global warming and its effects, and they're currently producing an album to help support Sea Shepherd, a charity based on protecting marine wildlife all over the globe. These and a majority of all death and heavy metal musicians are not doing this out of some far-strung image of worshipping Satan. As far as encouraging drug use, this is rarely true in the case of heavy metal. If you want a scapegoat for this, look in the direction of mainstream hip-hop and rap, but even then, it's an ignorant blanket statement. A lot of musicians who sing about drug use, such as Lane Staley, do it in an entirely negative way. He lays out his emotional trials of heroin addiction, which eventually led to his death, and most of the Alice in Chains fans would argue this had the entirely opposite effect of encouraging them to follow in his actions. Some songs do sing about the act of, for example, marijuana, in a positive light. But of all the drugs, this one science has backed being one of the less harmful, especially when the church encourages use of a more dangerous, alcohol, in the form of wine. An odd comparison, but a fair one when you want to start picking teeth about it all. When it comes to the encouraging of bisexuality, the ignorance level here shot through the roof. No music can change someone's sexuality. Of course, the bigoted and ignorant position of a majority of the Christian population would argue otherwise. I know plenty of gay, straight and bisexual musicians, and none of them have had their position changed due to music. Some have even come to accept it, which is a fantastic gift music has to help people through personal trials. And the last subject we'll touch on, the elephant in the room, black metal. Black metal, for those who don't know, arose in England and later became better known from Norway, where black metal bands would encourage the burning of churches. They claimed because the Norwegian culture had been destroyed years ago by the invasion of the foreign religion of Christianity. I do not support that action, but the fact is, black metal bands are a tiny, minute population of the music genre, and even now, let me use an example of a musician with the stage name Nurgle. He sings and does guitar for a band named Behemoth, a blackened death metal band. He sings about dark subjects, Satan, hell, Christianity, religion in general, and so on. But he does not do this out of satanic worship. He does this instead out of disdain for organised religion, and he himself is an atheist. God forbid one can express their opinions through their art. And again, like I mentioned before, he uses the imagery of Satan and so on as a writing mechanism, as a way to express his disdain for this religion. I don't expect to receive rights to post this as a video response, nor do I expect a cogent argument or response, but I felt this side of the argument needed to be presented. Heavy metal is a genre of music defined by the musicianship or the style of playing, not by its political or religious traits. It has often been the scapegoat for attempted censorship by overprotective, conservative, middle-aged people all over the world, and a majority of the criticism is bred through utter lack of research and thought. In the same way the Beatles and Rolling Stones were pegged as satanic, a rejection of a new, extreme form of music. I hope you enjoyed, or at least learned something from this video, and encourage you to spread this around and help educate the few people who may stumble upon that bigoted video without any previous knowledge of the subject and be lured into the vile attitude of these people. I'll see you next time. Hidden Philosopher out.